Hi everyone, welcome to Mark's 900. I'm Mark, and as you can see, today we've got some traditional British weather. Now it's a good job it's today and not a few days ago, because I've just come back from a motorbike tour down to the south coast of England. We went down to Plymouth, me and a bunch of my mates. We had a great time as ever. Let me tell you about it, but to do that, I think we better go inside. Here we are then, out of the rain, and about this trip down to Plymouth on the south coast of England. Well, first thing is a sort of lessons learned, if you like. What we did was, we booked the trip about 4 months ago. It was well before Christmas, and we told everyone where we were going, where we were staying, and when we were going. And that gave them plenty of time to prepare and get ready for a particular date. If you all sit around in a room and try and decide on it amongst yourselves, it can take an awful lot of time. So much better just to book it and tell people what's going on. Anyway, that's my top tip if you're ever going away on one of these trips. Now, I had a couple of difficult decisions to make before I went. The first one was about luggage. Now, normally I take this, which is a luggage system. It's an Oxford one. It's an Oxford T30R, and it is absolutely brilliant. That normally goes on the back of my bike. I'll say it's brilliant, but the one thing I don't like about it is that it sort of forces me into a particular sitting position. And over a long period of time, that gets quite uncomfortable. So I wanted to try something else instead of this. I mean, I'm quite happy to use that, but I thought what I'd try on this occasion was a backpack. Carries about the same amount of gear, perhaps a little bit less, and I didn't have to take any shoes this time because I've got my new motorcycle boots. So I packed this up with a very minimal amount of gear that I needed. If I'm honest, probably could have done with one extra pair of underpants, but you know, you can use them for 4 days if you know how to do that. Inside out, back to front, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I got through, soldiered on, and I managed to get to the end of the tour with enough clothes. And I took everything in a backpack. Now, the added advantage was that all my mates ride with like adventure bikes, and they've all got panniers on the back of their bikes. So what they said to me was, "Hey Mark, why don't you just stuff all your gear into one of our panniers?" I said, "Thanks very much." Dropped it into somebody else's pannier, and Bob's your uncle. Didn't need to take anything with me on tour. Right, let's talk about clothing next. The next thing I want to talk about then is the age-old problem of what to wear. Well, in this case, it was quite important because it's April in 2022 and it was either going to be raining, hot or cold. We just couldn't work it out. So the options are leather jacket. Really like this leather jacket. It's an RST. It's AAA rated for safety, and it cuts through the wind as well. So it's much better than wearing a big flappy sort of touring jacket. Problem is, you can't fit much underneath it. So if it gets cold, then you're cold. So there was that as an option. And the other thing I could have worn was this, which is my touring jacket. Now, this is great. It's very, very cheap. It cost me about £70. It's a GMAC Pilot, and it's not particularly waterproof, but I can fit loads of clothes underneath it, and it keeps me really warm. So I went for this one, and it turned out to be a really good move, because the day I wheeled my bike out of the garage ready to go down there, it was absolutely freezing. I could see my breath. So put plenty of layers on underneath, and this was as warm as toast. So that was a good move. Anyway, let's talk about that trip down to Plymouth. And best way to do that, I think, is to watch some videos, and I'll talk you through it. Okay, here we go then. Here's the route we took from Gloucester, GL1. We went down, we avoided motorways, we went down to Minehead, and then off down to Plymouth via Dartmoor. That was the plan anyway. Now, I'm not going to show you the whole route and all that sort of stuff. That's a different video that I've just got set up for my mates. But there's the 4 of us that left. Now, I've got to say, it wasn't the best trip we've ever had, for a number of reasons really. The first one was that it was cold. Like, it was sunny, but it was really cold. Then it rained. We had one guy that was supposed to come down, but unfortunately couldn't make it, and he had to join us a bit later on. But there were a few other things that happened as well. We stopped off for some food at a restaurant that was in a garden centre. It was supposed to be really good. There was one person serving. It took us hours to get served, and that put us back in terms of time. Then we had a couple of people drop bikes, which is really unusual. That normally doesn't happen at all, let alone twice on one leg of a journey. We found that the roads were really busy as well. So by the time we got anywhere near Plymouth, we were absolutely exhausted because we'd been on the road for hours, and we decided instead of going through Dartmoor, we'd go on the outside on the dual carriageway, and it was rammed. Cars were barely giving us any room to pull out. It was not pleasant at all. So there was quite large portions of the journey which we just sort of sat on the bike thinking, I wish this would end. Anyway, we got there in the end. And we arrived at the Jury's Inn in Plymouth, which I highly recommend. It was a lovely hotel, and there was plenty of room out the back for parking, which is like underground parking that was locked at night. So that was good news. Then we went out for a curry. We were recommended a place which turned out to be the most expensive curry house any of us had ever been in. And yet it wasn't very good at all. So there you go, day one. It was a difficult journey down and a bit of a rotten curry to end the day on. It just goes to show that, you can plan these things, and it doesn't always go particularly well. Okay, so the next day was just a much better day all round. It started off with a brilliant breakfast in a place called Elvira's, which is this little cafe you can see in front of me there. Off to the left is the sea. We're obviously going to turn right, and then we head off through Plymouth out onto our journey around the south coast and up through Bodmin Moor. So as I say, it's looking like a much better day. We had a great breakfast, the sun's shining, there's a few clouds, but generally it's quite warm. We've checked the bikes over, they're all going well, and as you can see, the roads are pretty empty. So here we go then, we're going to head off down to our first destination, which is a little village called Looe. But just before we get there, we've got to go over a bridge, and I love a bridge. I don't know what it is about them, but I love riding over bridges. And this one is the Tamar Bridge, which was built in 1961 and runs adjacent to the Royal Albert Bridge, which was built in the 1850s by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. So you can see that all the way along, and it's just a great view. So we'll get over this bridge and then head down into Looe. So this is the road down into Looe, and you can see it off there into the distance. So if you are ever visiting the south coast of England and you're around Devon and Cornwall, this is definitely a great place to come and visit. This is a quintessential English coastal village down on the south coast. It was really a fishing village, and I would say it probably gets really busy in the middle of summer, so if you're going to do it just slightly off season, that would be my recommendation. There's some fairly limited parking for cars, and if you're on a bike there is a dedicated motorcycle parking area. So after we'd wandered around Looe for a little while, we went up the road to another village which is called Polperro, and Polperro is utterly stunning. So again, if you find yourself on the south coast of England around Devon and Cornwall, definitely go and visit Polperro. It's steeped in history about all the smuggling and the pirates and all that sort of stuff, so it's really an interesting place to go and see. So whilst we were in Polperro, we were speaking to one of the locals who said, you know what, there's a windy road that comes out of here, the bikers absolutely love it, and that's probably your best bet, so take that road and head off out to Bodmin. And that's the way we went. The one thing I will say about roads in this part of the country is that they seem to be covered in grit. I don't know what it is, as if somebody's kind of gone along and just deliberately sprinkled a load of grit all over the roads. And in one case we went round a bend and it was just turned into potholes. So, you know, I did what you're not supposed to do. I panicked, pulled my brakes on and ended up on the wrong side of the road. Now luckily I could see that there was nothing coming, so it wasn't really as if I was ever in any danger, but you could definitely have got caught out by that bend if you were doing any sort of speed. So the roads, not in great condition, and then when you get onto the major roads, as I mentioned before, they tended to be really busy, certainly on the way down. So it was kind of frustrating really. But anyway, once we got out onto Bodmin Moor, which is the bit that you've been watching right now, that was a different game altogether, because there's a road that runs right through Bodmin, and let me tell you, that is a fantastic piece of road. The views are amazing. You can see it's just like miles of nothing and the odd lake and bushes and stuff like that, but it's just miles and miles of countryside, and we just love riding through there. So we did Bodmin, and then we carried on in a big loop round and then came back into our hotel at Plymouth. We went out that night, and we didn't go back to the same curry house, oddly enough. We went and had a load of beer and then went to a kebab shop, you know, because we're quite classy like that. And the kebab shop was brilliant. We all had something different, and every bit of it was lovely, and it was like a fraction of the price. So there you go. You don't always have to spend a lot of money to get great food. So this is the last day, day 3. We're heading for home, and it started well because we had a great breakfast in the Jeweller's Inn, and then off we went. Now you might remember that I said on the way down we were a bit tired, so we missed out going through Dartmoor, and we went round on the A38, which is a dual carriageway, just to get us there quickly, and that road was terrible. I mean, it was, as I say, it was chock-a-block. So what we did, on the way back, we went through Dartmoor, and I've got to say, thank goodness we didn't miss this one, because that is a spectacular road. The B3212, which goes all the way through Dartmoor National Park. You see Dartmoor Prison, which is an incredible sight. And the road's not particularly difficult to ride. You can see it's just mainly a long straight road. It's beautifully tarmacked and the views are utterly stunning. So we did that, and then off we went. Ended up back in Gloucester, and that was really the end of our trip. So over the 3 days we covered just short of 500 miles and thoroughly enjoyed it on the whole. My summary would be that you really don't want to miss out on riding through this part of the country. The highlights are clearly the roads through the moors and the small picturesque villages. I would recommend that this trip is taken outside of peak times, as it was busy enough when we went, so God knows what it would be like during the height of summer. Right then, better take my own good advice and start planning the next trip. Anyone out there got any good ideas where to go next? Please let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it from me. Keep your chains oiled, and I'll see you soon.